After the expansive World Peace Tour in 1983 in support of peace of mind, Iron Maiden further cemented their status as an emerging worldwide sensation. Touring most of mainland Europe, including Scandinavia, as well as the US and Canada, the band reached new heights in popularity and showed no signs of slowing down. Once the tour ended in December 1983, the band spent nearly a month off before heading to Jersey, England to begin writing for the new album. For the first time in their recording careers, Iron Maiden maintained the same lineup as the prior release when recording for Powerslave, and it really shows. Nicko McBrain's presence cannot be understated, and the chemistry he developed with the other band members became much more noticeable on this album. With the drumming solidifying the rhythms, Dave Murray and Adrian Smith also continued to evolve their chemistry, which resulted in some of their best work. In particular, the Duelists, Aces High, and Flash of the Blade showcased an astounding array of memorable riffs, fantastic harmonies, solos, and just utterly mind-blowing textures, layering, and ambience that added a huge boost to the moods of those songs. So, after rehearsing and writing for a month or so, the fellas once again headed to the Bahamas to record in Compass Point Studios, and while there, naturally imbibed in a little partying to loosen up before actually getting to work. All told, the band spent about 2 months recording the album, and it was then mixed in Electric Lady Studios in New York in May and June of 1984 for a September release. The World Slavery Tour they did in support of Powerslave was a marathon, lasting nearly a full year, and nearly 200 shows played in about 25 countries. In fact, the tour was so long, vocalist Bruce Dickinson contemplated leaving the group if the tour had continued any longer. And the tour, while arduous, rocketed Iron Maiden to full-blown worldwide fame, and wherever they went, they were met with intensity and fervor. In particular, the band played a huge festival at the inaugural Rock in Rio in Brazil, a country known for its love of music, and in particular, more technically demanding genres such as progressive rock and metal, and thrash. Powerslave was the spawning grounds for some of the band's most popular songs, such as Aces High, 2 Minutes to Midnight, and Rime of the Ancient Mariner, which is still the band's longest track to date at nearly 14 minutes long. Without any more delay, shall we take a gander at one of Iron Maiden's most praised recordings? Here is a little look at their 1984 release and 5th overall record, Powerslave. Welcome back, my friends. Today we'll be taking a look at another of Iron Maiden's most celebrated albums, and one which nearly ended up breaking them. Powerslave was a hugely successful release, and the tour in support of it was so long that several members, i.e. Bruce Dickinson and Adrian Smith, contemplated leaving. After the tour ended in July of '85, they decided to take the rest of the year off to recuperate and gather their wits before starting writing on Somewhere in Time in early '86. I love this album, and it was again an improvement from its predecessor, Peace of Mind. The instrumentation was tighter, more progressive, different sounding, and just much more adventurous and mature of a record for them. Many of the songs deal with war and the power games of the world, but I really thought that this album had more of a historical retrospective kind of vibe, and it was exemplified in particular in Flash of the Blade and the Duelists. Though basically every song, with the exception of Lost for Words, the instrumental, has that feel to it anyway. As the lineup was the same, you can really feel the band gelling with this album. Nicko felt more comfortable, and the arrangements were just tighter overall. And Powerslave is a solid record, has some of their best songs, and definitely moving them further away from their older sound. It's always great to see a band progress in that direction and push themselves a little bit more to write some unconventional songs that aren't formulaic or two-riff, cookie-cutter kind of songs. Iron Maiden's never been that kind of a band anyway. It's true that they do rely on catchy riffs to carry a few of their songs, or at least some extended passages of songs, but they always try to reinvent themselves and still have some esoteric qualities that maintain their signature sound, even though they sound different. Powerslave was no different than that, and had a fresh feel that sounded very different but with a ton of energy and a lot of integrity, which I always like to see from bands. So with no further tarrying, shall we get started with the song analyses for Powerslave? Here we go. Aces High, the opening track, begins with a fantastic intro, double guitar harmony that sounds like an air raid siren, drum and bass counterpointing that with a cool little ditty that conveys well the impending air attack. The pre-verse riff is awesome, and it really puts you in the middle of the scene with the high tempo, and verses are very strong, pulling you into the story even more, and with solid riffing by Dave and Adrian and Steve, and vocals are well done by Bruce, great high pitch and really crisp sounding notes, fit the music well. Choruses are also really strong with great vocal harmonies, and the ending riff done with a whammy bar. I'm not sure who does it, but it sounds like a propeller for a plane. And the energy and tempo of this song overall are just really strong, and they don't let you escape. The solos during the bridge are phenomenal and really put the nail in the coffin instrumentally for this one, just the capper, so to speak, and convey the plane fight really well. Vocals, like I said, are strong, and the ending note that Bruce hits, the really high note right before the end of the last chorus, is just awesome. On neutral or critical notes, it's a little bit repetitious, and some parts feel a tad flat, but it's a pretty minor criticism. It's a very strong song overall, so here be the rating. Aces High's final rating is 11.56 out of 13. "2 Minutes to Midnight," one of the band's more recognizable songs, opens with a great bluesy riff on guitar, and it segues into a pre-verse riff, which just sounds really nice. Drums are kick-ass. The lyrics are really cool, very blunt and angry at times, harsh, and very graphic in certain descriptions, critical of the military-industrial complex. The pre-chorus guitar is awesome, and it really pulls you into the war game scenario with the fleshed-out guitar chords, and the chorus itself is really strong, beautiful vocal harmonies, and just very high energy. The instrumental passage in the middle is groovy, with some solid soloing and heavy riffing, some guitar harmonies and good tempo shifts and drum fills. Nico's drumming in this song overall is really top-notch. On some critical or neutral notes, just feels a bit fluffy in spots and not fully developed or explored into the more esoteric veins with the projection and conveyance of the subject matter, and it's a little bit repetitive on the choruses, but that's just a minor note. So, here's the rating. 2 Minutes to Midnight gets a 9.68 out of 13. Lost for Words, Big Aura. The instrumental of the album starts off with a cool intro, nice cymbal work, strong by Nico, and there's the guitar riff that comes in as heavy and punchy. The first bridge has a guitar harmony that sounds really cool, and it's got good ambience and texture. There's nice little improvs on the first reprise, which is the second bridge, so to speak. Nice bass and guitar work, and also got an epic and cool guitar riff. The second movement has a nice build-up bass line, which is especially cool, and it's got some great solos in it. The third movement has some pretty epic guitar layering, and there's a passage that's got a nice, beautiful wall of sound and a majestic feel. On some neutral or critical notes, the second movement, while cool in some ways, does drag on a little bit, and overall the song's groovy, but doesn't seem like they were overly enthusiastic about it. So here's the final rating. And Lost for Words, Big Aura, receives 9.09 out of 13. Flash of the Blade opens up with a really sweet guitar riff, builds up with the drums after that, and then a heavy riff to layer it a little bit more, build the mood, and snare roll by Nico into the verses is awesome. The verses themselves, really majestic vibe, very powerful, and the vocals by Bruce are awesome. Lyrics are well done, really do a good job telling the story of the character, and the guitar riffing and harmonies overall in the song set the stage well for the mood. chorus, the vocals and vocal harmonies in particular are awesome, and there's an instrumental bridge in the middle, just lots of really powerful and good riffs, great texture, frantic pacing, and it invokes a strong pride in fencing. And as Bruce Dickinson, who is a fencer, wrote the lyrics, that makes sense. He was really into this song. The end of this passage in particular is the wall of sound with the guitar layering. It's really intense and it conveys well the overall atmosphere. Critical and neutral notes, it's a pinch repetitious in some passages, and there's a little too much of the main riff and chorus. So anyway, here's the rating. Flash of the Blade gets a 10.45 out of 13 final rating. The Duelists, my personal favorite for this album. The intro just gets right into it with the riffing really pulling you into that duel scene. The bass counterpoints in this song are top-notch, one of my favorite aspects of this song, and the verses, good pacing. Vocals are very strong, and the chorus harmony is very well done. It's one of their best at capturing the spirit of the lyrics through the instrumentation. You can really feel the spirit of this song in the instruments themselves, and then reading the lyrics really adds depth to that experience. The drums are really solid, cool improvs, fills, and just solid beats by Nico. The bass by Steve Harris overall is awesome, provides a tremendous counter strike to all of the main riffs in the song, which is what you would expect in a dueling themed song. The first bridge movement, harmony is cool, and the breakdown is great. Really sweet bass line. Harmony carries on into a really tight soloing passage by Adrian and Dave, and the solos are passionate, also conveying the intensity of the duel and also the injury that one of the gentlemen undergoes. The solos during the third bridge are just solid, and the bass line by Steve is just shredding. It just kills. Every time I listen to that song, I always hum the bass line to myself. It's just awesome. End of the bridge guitar harmony really captured the injury of the guy as he gets stuck with the sword and the imminent defeat, especially the breakdown into the third verse. On a neutral or critical observation, only a tiny bit of punch is missing in this song, and it's a little bit repetitious at times, but overall this is a superb track, so I highly recommend looking at this one. And here's the rating. And the Duelists receives a 12.5 out of 13. Back in the Village, my personal pick for the weak track of the album, but it nonetheless has a really cool intro riff, and then it blossoms into a badass modification for the pre-verse riffing, and the vocals are fairly strong overall by Bruce in this song. Nice fast tempo in the instruments, and really good song for straight shredding rock. The bridge guitar harmonies are really solid, and it does well for capturing the air raid and bombing scenario. The solos in this song just shred. Great soul and depth in this one. So on that note, it's really strong. And the second half, instrumental bridge, really cool bluesy chord riff and soloing passages. It's awesome. Neutral notes, its vocals, while strong, don't convey much passion and feeling, and they're a little bit flat. Lyrics are okay, but they do tend to wear a little thin and not consistently good throughout. And on some critical observations, the chorus is pretty weak and repetitive and just lacks a lot of depth. And overall, the weak song of the album, and it's repetitive, does not have a lot going for it besides some cool riffs, which isn't enough for a complete package of a song. So let's see the rating. And Back in the Village gets 8.7 out of 13. Title track, Powerslave. Really like the intro of this song. It sets the stage well, really creepy vibes with the sound effects, and then badass fill by Nico leading into the pre-verse. The creepy vibes just continue from there. All the riffs setting up the megalomania of the pharaoh, and then in the verses themselves are just awesome. The pre-chorus has a really haunting and creepy vibe. It just gives me goosebumps. And then the chorus itself is really strong, especially the background vocal harmony chanting. And this song just overall has a really different feel for them. Good atmosphere. And there's a nice transition into the instrumental bridge, slowing the tempo down. Cool passionate guitar solo and nice bass line, and then the bridge just picks up from there, tempo again, and then some killer solos, bass line, and harmonies, and the beat's just fantastic. And then there's a breakdown back into the verse where Nico pulls out all the punches. It's just shredding on those toms, leading back into the main riff. Lyrics are really nice in this song, really creepy and great mood invoked. Works well with the instrumentation, and the ending, even though it's one of those jam session kind of things, keeps the mood of the song intact. And on some critical notes, or neutral notes, it just feels a little hollow in some intangible ways, kind of a hobby song type feel is how I describe it, and it doesn't feel like it was very meaningful to them outside of the creepiness factor. So here's the rating. Powerslave receives a 9.62 out of 13. Okay, the epic of the album, Rime of the Ancient Mariner, clocking in at almost 14 minutes long. It gets right into it with an awesome intro. It's got sweet riffing and drumming passages. Really feels like an ocean voyage. The lyrics that paint a strong picture, using passages from the poem but not excessively, it works really well. The post-verse harmony guitar riff, also one of their better ones, really recognizable. Bruce's vocals in this song are strong and really tells a good story. It conveys the proper moods for the different passages. The chorus, I guess you could call it, where he sings "Sailing On and On," is really powerful and also deepens the mood more in the texture of the song. Really strong transition into the second passage. Nice tempo shift that really works for the frantic mood of panic and fear that he and his crew are experiencing. The bridge after that, it has a really solid groove, nice bass line that really works for the mood as the mariner lives on after his crew are struck dead. The breakdown into the third movement is done nicely, really slowing the tempo down, and the third movement itself got some nice mast creaking sound effects and cackling and bass and guitar working really well to set a calmer mood, but with sense of foreboding, as it were. There's a build-up back into the fourth movement after this with a nice bass line by Steve, and it's supposed to convey as the mariner's reflecting on his deeds and what's happened. It's a really cool and projecting his hopelessness and then his hope as the spell starts to break. So very nice. Fourth movement pulls you in very strongly as the curse lifts and you can feel the mariner is freed of his burden, so to speak, and slowly returning. The solos do reflect really well the overall ambience in the mood as the ship resumes its course. The guitar harmonies in this passage are great. Tempo shifts, cool, and really working it. And the riffing is awesome. A lot of memorable riffs in this song. If you can handle listening to a 13.5-minute song and really take the time to absorb it, it's a tremendous passage. The final movement is a tragic one, as well as hopeful and inspirational in the lyrical motifs. The music works really well with it, and this does not feel like a 13.5-minute song to me anyway. It's just an awesome track. Neutral and critical notes, it perhaps could have been a little bit shorter. I say that, but I really like long songs, so that's just kind of a point of contention, I guess. Properly set the stage for such an epic, you kind of have to, given the length of the poem that it's based on. It needed to be fairly lengthy. And again, it's a little bit repetitious in some passages, but it really amounts to drawing you further into the story to set the mood more. So let's take a look at Rime of the Ancient Mariner's final rating, shall we? Rime of the Ancient Mariner receives an 11.54 out of 13. Okay, so there you have a song-by-song analysis of Iron Maiden's 1984 album, Powerslave. So, now we're going to take a look at its average rating out of all the songs cumulatively, as well as its ranking among all of the 15 studio albums they've done. So, there we are. And Powerslave receives a 10.39 out of 13 average rating, ranking it 6th out of 15 studio albums. And there we have it. Another great album by Iron Maiden. A slight improvement on the average over Peace of Mind, but I don't feel they had yet reached their deepest album yet. Not quite at the peak or the valleys, depending on what way you want to look at it. Thanks for watching. I know this was a little bit longer of a video than the other ones so far, and I appreciate any feedback you guys might have there. I can improve this format, or tell me what you think, or just converse about the band, whatever. You guys are the ones watching the videos. I appreciate you letting me know what you think of them, one way or the other, and I'll be coming back at you in 2 weeks with Somewhere in Time. Thank you again for watching. See ya.